So it has been a few weeks since the summer 22 season of anime has begun and quite a lot of content to go through today. At least for me, since I might be watching just a little bit of seasons each season. I was gonna upload a spring 22 version of this, but I got hit with the amazing copyright claims and that was fun to go through. Hopefully it doesn't happen here and we'd be taking huge W's if it doesn't. So we'll be just doing a metric of me talking about each show, my rating of it from the bottom left of the video, and yeah, there's a few anime that have about 3 to 4 episodes that came out as the time of making this video, and others where only one is out, so keep that in mind. Also, all these discussions will have spoilers up to that certain point of the anime. None of this is in any particular order, so let's just jump into it. We'll begin with Vermeil and Gold, a show about Alto who managed to perfectly score well in every subject except summoning. And he'll have to repeat the school year if he doesn't manage to summon a familiar by the next day. From there, he comes across a strange summoning book in the library and ends up summoning Vermeil, a legendary devil who was trapped in the book for eons, and because of that, she is pretty rusty and weak and therefore needs mana, with a certain method. If you know Fate, the Fate fans who just know what I'm talking about right now. So this is pretty fun to watch so far. How I best describe this anime is it's somehow a balance between being wholesome while going all out in the horniness department. Vermeil and Alto's relationship is just as wholesome as it is horny. You can see how they are there to help each other out, but Vermeil can just go in her lustful mode and throw herself at Alto and, exchange mana. Vermeil herself is probably the best part of the show with a fun personality. She has a seductive and assertive personality, but one that doesn't feel like it's just some boring fan service like some other characters in the ecchi shows, which is very good. Alto is also a pretty decent cool character. He's not a wimp, but rather just a dude who's chill. Hey, he actually stood up for Vermeil against the Dragon Rider and went behind him and casted a spell. Lilia is also fun to watch just how horrible she is at hiding her crush on Alto. And the fights are actually pretty neat. I like how it doesn't seem like we're always gonna one-shot the enemy, as shown with Chris, who is pretty fun and cool as an antagonist so far, which is, really rare in these type of stories. Overall, pretty fun and action ecchi show. 7.5 out of 10. With Love Live Superstar coming back this season, we have yet another idol show alongside it here too. Idol group Tings is nearing a breakup after not being able to gain a following, and if they don't get a full venue next show, they're going to break up. This is where they get assigned a new manager, Naoki Hinase, who decided to stop managing idols because of how his co-workers wished he were gone since everything positive just went to him and nobody else got anything. At least that's how I saw it. Obviously here he does eventually decide to be Tings' temporary manager after seeing how they're like. And no idea if this is actually going to be used, but it seems like he's able to tell whether someone is lying or not by seeing their aura or something. Might be just a metaphorical thing, but whatever. Of the first 2 episodes, I'm actually enjoying this a good bit so far. The manager is definitely my favorite part of the story, though we don't know much about him yet. But it does seem like there is a lot more relationships and past we have yet to uncover, and I do hope we get to see this character be utilized to its fullest. We do see how he does things here, such as how he planned, how he'd be able to get the full venue, and also be able to win over the idol fanatics' hearts in a way that shows that what he can see each idol excels at best, and use it to his maximum. Always essential to have characters like these just be shown how they are tactical, strategic in any way, to showcase the methods, and make it feel believable enough for the character to do them, rather than just say it happened and write it off that way. Ting seems okay for now. I don't have much to say about them, so we'll see how later it goes into the story, and we have the other girls as well to talk about once we get to the finale, of course, of the season. Promising show. 6.5 out of 10. Easily my favorite of the season. It's just way too good, man. The title sounds like an Isekai gimmick, like the mom Isekai from a few years ago, where you think it's with an uncle, we're going into Isekai, killing a demon lord, but it's absolutely nothing like that, and it is leagues better. The story starts out with our protagonist Takafumi having to take care of his uncle who's been in a coma for 17 years and has finally regained his consciousness. The uncle claims that he's been in another world this entire time and moves in with his nephew. This is probably one of the most refreshing isekai concepts I've seen in ages, and god, it is just so hilarious and enjoyable to watch. The comedy is fantastic. It is not purely making fun of isekai tropes only, such as Konosuba. Doesn't mean Konosuba is bad though, but it does literally go all out. From the jokes of how people don't give a shit about what the video topic's about, as long as it has a cute girl doing said topic, it'll rack up a fuck ton of views. The struggles of a YouTuber, the uncle's dense and hilariously terrible way of dealing with his isekai life. Damn, this dude just fucking dipped out of every single sign for example, he puts the ring on the tsundere as if he's proposing, and then he just casually sells that shit and gives her the money, and he dips out. And when the elf says he owes her dinner just because he thinks she will leech off of him, he just runs away and dips, because he thinks she will forever ask him for shit. Oh, and speaking about the elf, what the fuck's up with her name? Like, what is this? So, I don't want to list out every type of joke they make, and just want you to let you experience it yourself, but yeah, there's nothing I don't love in here. Art style's great, characters are fun with the main three, uncle-nephew dynamic's great, and I expect it to get only better here from here on out. And the jokes are also pretty fresh and kind of in-depth, aside from just, a one-time thing. 9 out of 10. With a title like this, it will definitely raise an eyebrow or two, wondering if this is still anime or another kind of anime. But surprisingly, this has almost no fan service aside from a couple of scenes. Yume and Mizuto were initially dating in school, indulging in a bunch of hobbies such as books, though over time one thing led to another and the relationship crumbled due to problems and arguments, and they just parted ways. Years later, Mizuto's dad decides to remarry, and it just so happens that Mizuto's new stepsister is the same girl he dated himself. Coincidence can be really crazy, huh? I think this is pretty fun so far. I enjoy the Kaguya-esque vibe to it, seeing how these two, mainly Yume, try to always outwit the other in these pretty childish things and, overthinking in this psychological quote-unquote battle. And sometimes, like accidentally taking his boxers back to her room, and Mizuto doing the same thing with her bra. Their dynamic does feel like sibling banter too, which is pretty rare for shit like this where you just hear Oni-chans all over the place. Though yes, it is pretty obvious that they are still into each other and they're being uptight and refusing to admit it, as we see with Yume's clinginess to Mizuto when she was sick. Like, this chick got insecure that Mizuto forgot about her pressing her chest onto him in the early day and just decided, alright, let's just get out of the shower with only a towel to throw him off and prove otherwise that my chest is not forgettable. It's absurd and chaotic, but feeling grounded in a way, if that makes sense. Sidecast so far is only 2 characters, with Kawakami, a dude who's just interested in watching romances from the side, and Minami, an extroverted, fun, outgoing girl who coincidentally has the same name and voice actor as another Minami from a show called Bottom Tier Tomazaki, which was made by the same studio as well. Though if you have seen the latest episode at the time of making this video, you would know that these two are nothing alike when you get to the meat of their character. This show is somehow pretty wholesome with its moments, and also have this really wild premise, as such as what I mentioned earlier with Yume's moments being sick and wanting Mizuto to stick around. 7.5 out of 10. Maid and Abyss finally returns with a sequel, even though I don't really feel a long wait since I've only seen it a few months ago. I wouldn't really call this a favorite or anything. I thought the first season was decent. Some parts of it were definitely weak, but it did have its strong points. The world in this story is definitely its strongest element, as I don't really care about the main cast aside from Nachi, Bondrewd, and Ozen. And speaking of Bondrewd, the movie really is the current highlight of the story for me. I even initially watched the show because I was interested in him, and he delivered. In terms of season 2 so far, it starts in an interesting way for sure. We get various scenes that I'm not going to show you or describe to you here, but if you've seen it, you know. I forgot how much weird shit Maid and Abyss has too. It really doesn't hold back from showing vomit, piss, or shitting and any of that stuff. But yeah, as I said, the world story in this is easily the most interesting part of the story, and I'm looking forward to see how these Hollows and the Golden City play out from here. 6.5 out of 10. A show so degenerate and grim that they had to change various things in the anime compared to its source. First of all, the synopsis between both versions are different, as the anime leaves a pretty big detail that I can't even mention here, but you can connect the dots if I told you that the protagonist's life was not the greatest. And because of that, he wanders across a website that lets him set a character up with a bunch of questions being asked and creating skills and abilities for him, and then tells him that he will be transported to another world and will never be able to return. And he still goes with yes regardless without thinking much of it. This one sure is something. If Twitter found out about this shit, oh brother. Gore goes out all the way here and he buys, well, certain things for his enjoyment, not so nice things. The fact that this shit has 3 versions should say enough. Other than that, it's okay. I find myself a bit bored at times, mostly because it is basically a standard fantasy story with a darker twist on top of it. There are some things that I like about it. The monologues for the protagonist are alright, and the action scenes and tension are pretty well made. Especially how the gore is like here. It adds on to the tone rather than it feeling too edgy sometimes. Michio's thing of dilemma when it comes to murder in reality versus being in Disney World initially saw as a game is somewhat interesting, but no idea if it will go anywhere. 6 out of 10. So, Danmachi returns after a not so long wait of about 2 years. It's been a while since I've seen Danmachi. More so on the first two seasons, as I've watched both in 2018 or something like that. So my memory on parts of it are kind of iffy. So I do want to rewatch it one day, and probably should have before this season. But I remember season 3 well enough. There's not much to say as of right now for this episode, since essentially it is a setup for the main arc to come, the expedition to get our main group stronger alongside the other children and the other familiars. I enjoyed Danmachi, and the exploration in the dungeons is decently fun to watch. I'll keep up with it and see how the story goes. 6.5 out of 10. After a good 9 years of waiting, Devil's a Part-Timer finally gets a sequel. Maybe soon enough. No Year No Life can get one, but that's a dead meme about it right now, so you can keep coping. If you've seen the first season, you know what to already expect, except the art style shift likely made to make it look more modern. I dig the new art style, though not sure if I prefer it over the old one or not. Our main plotline right here is that there's this mysterious little girl that came out of a golden apple and started calling Mao and Emmy her parents. And now they're trying to take care of her while figuring out the background behind this little girl, Alas Ramos, and why she's calling Emmy and Satan her parents. This is actually one of my favorite shows in general, so I'm excited to see the gang back in and see their hijinks. So far there isn't really a lot to say as we're only 2 episodes in, but it should be a fun ride for sure. 7.5 out of 10. One of the best parts about the show, and the easiest to notice, has to be the visuals and the music. It is so colorful and lively that it screams fun and fitting for a story exploring the joys and thrill of the night, and making it look fun and vibrant while also having no actual bystanders be shown, aside from a few random drunk men and our main characters. I've sort of known about this series a while back since a friend of mine recommended the manga to me a year or two ago. I just never really got a chance to read it. So the story centers around Ko Yamori, an insomniac who's strolling around the night one day looking for something to do and get some freedom. He's someone who's kept an extroverted act in school and managed to befriend a bunch of people, and even got confessed to. It's already a leap above most anime protagonists, bro. But one day he just couldn't be bothered anymore. He doesn't understand the idea of love and liking someone well, and he just couldn't care enough to keep this act anymore. And while buying booze off a vending machine, he meets Nazuna Nanakusa, a vampire girl who offers to assist him with his insomnia by inviting him over to his place. In reality, she wanted to taste his blood, but catches her in the act and sees through her bullshit. From there, Koz decides that he also wants to be a vampire to be freed from his mundane and boring life, but in order to do that, he has to fall in love with a vampire to become one. Definitely one of my top 5s of the season so far. I really love the theme, dealing with the lack of motivation to do anything and the coming of age story for Ko, seeing as how he's trying to learn more about himself and is confused about a lot of things, such as friends and how to tell if someone is one, romance, and a lot of other things. The style, direction, dialogue in this are all fantastic and on point. Of course, that is to be expected when you have the same director as the Monogatari series, and it shows. Nazuna and Ko's interactions are great. I think it's pretty fun to see that the perverted character here is Nazuna instead of Ko, and Ko's reactions feel like they come from a personality rather than just the basic blushing and screaming from a bland protagonist. Their growth is pretty wholesome, seeing how despite the loose jokes that Nazuna does, she's pretty innocent. And the OP and ED are straight motherfucking bangers. 8.5 out of 10. Up next is the wholesome father-daughter dynamic fluff, with a Yakuza flavor on top of it. I say father in quotations because it's more guardian. Toru Kirishima, the demon of Sakuragi, is such a menace and a target for most of the other underground groups, to the point where they actively try to kill or severely injure him. Unfortunately for them, Kirishima is just very strong, able to send them all to the hospital with ease. Though his boss is not very fond of this behavior and decides to have Kirishima look after his daughter Yaika in order to get some responsibilities and potentially grow from it. Kirishima and Yaika's dynamic is pretty sweet to watch on top of the side characters we're introduced to, such as Sugihara's fun, honest nature he has going for him. And I do like watching Kirishima's gradual development, feeling attached to Yaika and softening up a bit. Makes me happy, makes me smile. 7.5 out of 10. The story stars our main idol duo, Yoshino and Nyoto. Yoshino is the pretty boy that all the girls flock to and swoon over, while Nyoto just looks like he's done with life and is always uninterested, making people why the fuck he's even there in the first place. He does have fans that are into that kind of thing though. Wait, what? There's a ghost? Damn fucking right there is. Asahi Mogami, a former idol, was killed in an accident, but managed to stay as a ghost due to her desiring to stay being an idol since she loves it so much. From there, the comedic relationship begins, and Nyoto uses Asahi for idol work, by having him control his body since she likes the things he doesn't and he's only interested in the idol industry for money anyways. Another pretty good show. From the entertaining and developing duo that is our ghost idol, unmotivated idol, to the hijinks they get to, such as getting closer to Yoshino since Nyoto barely ever got to talk to him, and getting to see how these two deal with it. By Ase fucking not shit up by wanting sweets. I love the scene when Ase wants to make him enjoy being an idol but feels as though he might not need her anymore because he can already outperform well without her. Though Nyoto, likely growing attached, still wants her around, whether it be for selfish or selfless reasons, to become one of the best idols together. It is a pretty sweet moment, but that made me enjoy both their characters a good bit more. Looking forward to it deeply. The fans might actually be the best part of the show. Is very fun to watch, especially with the latest episode, seeing how crazy and wild they get when it comes to Zings, or whatever the fucking group was called. Oh, and the CGI models and dances look pretty funny looking. 7.5 out of 10. With the usual jam-packed seasons with a bunch of Isekai, this is one of them for sure. One of them of all time. Should I tell you the premise? Just know that the key difference is that he decided to trade his memories in his old world for abilities in his new one, and he fell in love with the reincarnation goddess Melfina, and Desai claims that he will fall in love with her again even without his memories. There's nothing essentially subverting or unique about this, but it's still a decent watch. It has some cool aspects to it, such as the goddess who's literally just a fucking menu, and how it seems like every character he'll pick up will be talking in his head like best bro Jiraiya. It has another interesting aspect in here where the head of the guild managed to find out that he's from another world and saw right through him, and how he's not the only reincarnated guy. Hopefully more about that later. Not a lot for me to say from here, but there is an interesting CG style choice for the fight, which looked like a game stage sequence, which I guess it looked fine. 6 out of 10. Shadow's House is back and it's better than ever. We continue the story of Kate's Gold overthrow the Shadow's House system and how they use the humans to manipulate them into thinking they're dolls that exist to serve the house. I should mention that I have read the manga already and that the last part of the first season was actually anime original, referring to Edward kidnapping Emilico and everything surrounding that. Also the fact that the rope character should have shown up during the cleaning duty episode Emilico, Sean, and Rum had early on in the series. But it's good to see that they decided to shift back to the manga focus, rather than pull a Promised Neverland, since the rope character is essential as you guys have been seeing the latest episode here at the time of recording this video. Of course, the story is the strongest element in this series. The mysteries, character relationships, and backgrounds, the overarching plot of Kate strategizing to infiltrate the ranks and take down this entire house for its horrible deeds. If you haven't seen the first season, I would recommend it to fans of Promised Neverland, Death Note, and things alike. It is way closer to the Promised Neverland over Death Note, but the reason why I say Death Note is because the type of dynamic that Kate and Edward have. They never actually interact, but they do suspect the other, and they're constantly trying to think of ways to weed the other out, waiting for one to make a mistake and be able to get what they want. Anime adaptation so far on point, almost as much enjoyment compared to me reading the manga. And this is also my favorite arc in the manga, and it'll be spanning out through the entire season, and I am definitely looking forward to it. 8.5 out of 10. Oh boy, we're talking about this now, huh? Alright, so I do actually really enjoy the first season. I think it had some good things going for it, especially the characters of Ruka and Mami. Mami may have a bunch of people who loathe her, but she might be my favorite part of the story. She has this chaotic and fun presence in every scene she's in, and it's fun to watch and think about what her motives are. Whether it be for jealousy, pettiness since Kazuya seemingly moved on from her quickly, or just wanting to fuck with Kazuya. Ruka's also great with her characterization and backstory about her heart condition, and I like how she's like as a personality, though she can be pretty clingy and forceful, which might make people dislike her. What I know from manga readers is that the story takes the approach where they just drag shit out for eons and never progress anything just for the sake of that sweet, sweet money. I did honestly enjoy Kazuya's character in the first season, though that might get me killed here. He is one massive incel and cringelord when it comes to his decisions and actions, but I am under the general notion that an unlikable character does not equate to being a terribly written character. However, there are some underlying issues with this guy's character for sure, I'm not denying that. He regresses and grows when the scene demands it at times, and it makes it feel odd. Like how he went from all that in season 1, sometimes feeling like it went nowhere, and it just goes back to how he was in the start. Which isn't a bad thing by concept. Subarunosuke from Re:Zero has similar cases of this, but it's used in a way to further explore his character and highlight the realism and hardships of personal growth, rather than just artificially dragging the plot for the sake of it. 6.5 out of 10. From the author of both Taki-san and Konochi Tsubaki, this man do be eating good. Bro got 3 of his works with adaptations back to back. This show is great. It's similar to Taki's fluff and wholesomeness, minus the constant teasing that Taki has going for it. I like how in this work, the one who does indirectly do the teasing is Ayumu, the male lead, rather than the female. I say indirectly because the premise of the show is that Ayumu is in love with Uroshi but will not confess until he meets some shogi, and he's not making his move yet, and that's it. That's the premise for you. It sounds super simple because it is, and that's what's great about it. The main 2 are pretty fun, especially Ayumu. This man does such a horrible job at hiding his feelings for Uroshi that he reminds me of Naoya from Girlfriend Acts, as the word embarrassment does not exist in these 2's vocabulary. So if you want some fluff, here's your pick. 7.5 out of 10. The story is set in an era where samurai controlled Japan and masked demons took out every Shingensumi member except one, Todo Heisuke, who's currently supervising the criminals that he made pose as dead Shingensumi members in order to assist restoring peace, and are led by Ichiban Boshi, whose parents are killed by those same masked demons. The anime is fun. It gives me this shonen-esque vibe to it, and I like the tone and plot it has, though the tone can be shifting in weird ways at times. It is kind of funny that the art style compared to the poster is just literally nothing alike. Not at all. We're only in the beginning, but there are some somewhat interesting setups for Sakia and Akira at the time of making this video. That's about it. 6.5 or 7 out of 10. This has quite the interesting situation for it currently. Firstly, the manga only began like a year ago, and the episode 2 got cancelled due to having a really badly timed joke about an assassination on the president right after the death of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. In terms of the show itself, it is entertaining. It's about stand-up comedy, and you have all these groups aiming to get to the TEPPEN Grand Prix and perform there. We haven't seen all the groups yet, but it seems like they will get their focus each week, which is nice. I like Celebrity the most so far. I enjoy Mako's whole thing of wanting to be genuine friends with the other 2, even if she feels as though they are leagues above her financially and are famous. And how those 2 can't really bring themselves to tell Mako to be herself, since it would kind of come off as condescending given how they are way more famous and financial than her, and it is kind of nice to see. I do also like Kana's part a bit back in episode 3, but her big moment felt like something was missing due to the lack of episode 2 potentially. Who knows if that will ever come out. Opening is a pretty fun one though. One of the best ones this season for sure. 6.5 out of 10. Lycoris Recoil's poster image is probably my favorite this season, with the perfect blend of this colorful and cute versus the dark and grim, essentially grasping the series' tone very well. I rarely even mention or think about anime covers, but this one I had to mention. The Lycoris are girls who basically manage peace in Japan by eliminating criminals from the face of society. Takina, our protagonist, defies orders from the higher-ups and kills a weapons dealer in order to save one of the captured Lycoris. But this results in her getting kicked off of DA, and now works at Cafe Lycoreco and meets the charismatic and extroverted girl Chisato, who is the strongest Lycoris out there. So there's a perfect balance of sweet and comfy episodes, where the main 2 girls just hang out in the aquarium, buy some new underwear for protagonist and she just wears boxers instead of women's underwear, and Chisato wanted to get her some new clothes. And at the same time, you have the plot and action surrounding a bunch of things, such as the mystery behind the mission that Takina had got booted off because of, and the fact that there was a hack involved and it shouldn't have happened. Chisato is just best girl of the season, man. She's got this very enjoyable and fun personality, as mentioned earlier, that makes her enjoyable in every scene she's in, similar to the likes of Mari and Kitagawa from a few seasons ago, and I love her characterization up to this point. While she's got this everyone loves her vibe to her, it doesn't really feel like a Mary Sue or anything like that, and her reasonings behind her molos in not killing at any cost is pretty cool, as it's not just a I want to promote peace, she just simply does not want to take people's time from them, and instead just uses bullets that hurt like a bitch. Takina is also pretty compelling too. She starts off as a robotic following orders girl and nothing else, but slowly develops into her arc when finding a new place to belong and moving on from DA. And we see some of these subtle scenes of growth and even bigger ones. It's just her eating the candy compared to when she refused to eat from Chisato's bento box before and just took an energy drink. Wonderful sakuga and great stuff out there for sure. 8 out of 10. This show gives me early 2000s anime fantasy vibes. The story starts off with Shu Ogata, a deadbeat bum of a guy who's super terrible with money and has to leech off of Kisara, a demon he's made a contact with in exchange for power and to also help him financially. Shu runs his own PMC and looks for jobs in order to survive through, because man, this guy's just poor as fuck. The anime is at its best when it focuses on Shu's character when it comes to how horrible he is with money, or his interactions with the cast, with how desperate he is, or sometimes when he just leeches off of them and just like shit like that. Or, his characterization around his memory loss and his revenge against the demon who killed his family. It adds a tragic tone to his character as you see him slowly lose himself as he loses more and more memories to the point where he doesn't even remember the vital and most important things about his ex-girlfriend and the moments with her, Ayano. The main two girls are also cool. There's Kisara, who's a borderline Yana who could probably cut your dick off in your sleep if you're not being careful. Ayano is also fun, but she hasn't gotten as much screen time. But her relationship with Shu is currently getting focused at the time of making this video. I also love the fights in this. They're animated well, and we have a great setup introduction to the main girls' dynamic by having them literally fight over Shu while they're just fighting against a bunch of demon dogs. It is fucking great and creative, and I like how it does it here. Hell, there's even Truck-kun saving the day by hitting the guy who was trying to assassinate the mayor. 7.5 or 8 out of 10. From the creator of Jahi-sama, we have a maid who looks almost like her, but voiced by the best Ri Takahashi, the voice of Emilia and Megumin. Yes, that is a thing to note. Yuri's parents were killed in a car accident, and he was forced to dismiss all his servants due to not having much money to fund service with, but one day a mysterious maid, Lilith, comes to his house and offers to be his maid for free and do all house chores for him. The shtick is that Yurei is suspicious of her and what she's trying to pull off, since it's odd that someone as charming and beautiful like her would offer to work at a pure mansion like that, and for free to top it all off. I'm not quite sure how to feel about this for now. It feels very formulaic, but it is somewhat enjoyable. I just hope this doesn't feel like the same formula for the rest of the anime. Maid and Master seem to be kind of fun, with the maid's teasing and the Master's overthinking of what the maid is. I'll be curious to see how they change the formula for here and there. Maybe the side cast could help, since Jahi did do that a couple of times, and I thought Jahi was good in that aspect to a degree. 6 out of 10. More Isekai, but honestly this did exceed my expectations. Seeing that it is based on pharmacy did make me think it'd have a similar vibe to the likes of Drugstore Isekai from a few seasons back with its slice of life episodic time. Except this one has a much more in-depth look of the medicine aspect of the story, and its writer is apparently a pharmacist or a chemist apparently. Not sure, but whichever it is, it does really help for the immersion, since it does use real-world aspects of medicine and diseases with a small magical twist on top. Young pharmacist Kanji Yakutani is dedicated to finding a cure for the disease that took his sister's life and ended up dying himself due to overwork. He reincarnates into Pharma Demesis, a kid who was struck by lightning and now has a weird mark on his arm. The real Pharma was probably meant to die. New protagonist we have right here just took over the body instead. We do end up learning about the lore behind this world regarding divine arts, and that the god of medicine, Panactheos, is what gave him that mark on his arm. A blessing of some sort. There are a lot of pretty cool things about this anime. Currently, it's fucking great. First of all, we need to talk about the whole thing of Pharma being this overpowered godly being, and rather than setting him up as this, to his mentor as just someone to be praised and revered and loved, she was scared shitless, and she's just how much stronger and better he's gotten off of nothing, to the point where he has these inhuman powers such as the divine eye, and just wanted nothing to do with him. And it hits hard. It is a pretty realistic approach that barely any isekai stories go for, since they are going for a more wish fulfillment approach to that aspect. So I do like this a lot. Even if the mentor becomes part of the main group, I do think this is a good setup to show that yes, his overpowered abilities might not be just to be completely praised all the time, and he needs to work to show that he is to be trusted. Moreover, there is the way the story tackles his pharmacist topics. They're all real, and the things that Pharma talks about are all generally well researched and not just some, well, just put a few herbs and that's magic healing. The characterization seems to be something to anticipate too. I really do like how the dad realizes that his son might not be the same person anymore, and how he actually matters to the story and plot so far. And he realizes that he's not really being a parent to his kid. Absolutely killed it with the first 2 episodes of the story, and I really just do love it, and I'm hoping for more, and I really do not hope that this, fumbles or anything like that. 7.5 out of 10. So as some of you may know, I've started a series where I covers each love life separately, where I go over my thoughts on everything as a whole. Currently, only the Idol Project episode is out, though Sunshine is in the works at the moment. In terms of Superstar's first season, I was not much of a fan of it. I thought it was a decent setup for what's potentially to come, with some pretty cool aspects unique to Superstar itself, such as the 5 members rather than the standard 9, and while I'm not really a fan of Kanon as much as the main other protagonists such as Honoka, Chika, or Ryu, I do appreciate her unique qualities of being this high-spirited character while not being an airhead like Honoka or Chika. However, as some of you probably know, Superstar Season 2 already confirms that more members will join Liella to complete the Standard 9, which is a shame, but so far they do seem to be doing it pretty nicely. The Gyara girl seems to be the coolest one so far personally for me, and as well as the weird scientist girl Maid. I actually do like how the recruitment part seems to be a plot point that matters to a degree, as opposed to Sunshine's Idol Project, where they just get them like Pokemons, and it feels like more of an obstacle to an extent. And the fact that if from Superstar Season 1 they do already participate in the Love Live, and the story continues from there, and that is not a thing that has been tackled in other Love Lives, as the endings for those other Love Lives have always been after the competition. So seeing just the aftermaths of how people are kind of pressured and not really wanting to join the Liella because they don't really want to feel pressure to live up to that legendary expectation because they're striving to be champions. So I do think there is a lot of things that are good about Superstar that gives it that unique feeling that stands out from the other Love Lives, but it is not really one that I enjoy a lot personally. And before we go, can we also talk about whatever the fuck this scene is? It's just perfection. 6 out of 10. I genuinely don't know how to describe the show to you. You start off with YUREI, a singer who was fired from her agency due to the lack of gaining attraction, aside from one fan, and ended up participating in Hypersports, a competition filled with various sports where the winners get a chance to perform for an audience and could potentially grow big. The pacing in this is crazy fast with how that premise I just told you makes in a span of 10 minutes. I don't think this anime is trying to tell a story per se, at least how I see it for now. It is having fun with this wild shit that it's doing with its idol premise and adding a sports flavor on top. Or maybe it's the other way around. First episode was pretty bad for me, but it did get a lot better over time, and I am somewhat enjoying the absurdity it has. We do think that this could make a decent story later on, and we'll see how the story goes from here on out, I suppose. 6 out of 10. To add on more to the long-awaited sequels, Overlord's 4th season is here. It's been ages since I've seen the first 3 seasons, so it is a bit of a memory issue for me. I will likely rewatch it in the near future to get a good reminder of everything, since the story heavily needs that kind of thing, since the plot is very heavy and needs you to remember every plot point and everything that happened prior, such as for example this king, his whole thing in that episode. I kind of was a bit blanking out on his whole importance since it's been 5 years since I've seen season 2. So that is on me for sure. I should rewatch it. Maybe by the end of the season, you'll see me watching. I'm not sure once we get to the finale discussion of the season. Good content in the season so far, regardless though. Jumping into Overlord's best parts, the world building and seeing the political struggles between these nations and against Ainz's kingdom, and watching how Ainz outsmarts and overpowers them, and how he will pursue his goal of making his own utopian kingdom just so he could face his comrades. 7 out of 10. After half a decade, Classroom of the Elite finally is back. It's almost surreal, holy shit. It's been a few years since I've seen the first season, mainly because I'm planning to read the source instead of rewatching it. Off what I know from the source readers, season 1 had some drastic changes that left people unsatisfied, leading to not getting a sequel for a long time. Season 2 is definitely shaping up to be one of my favorites this season though. From the psychological battles, the curiosity and compelling nature that is Ayumu as a character, since he's doing a lot more stuff this season. This man just set up Kaori Ozawa to get bullied, break her completely, record it, and then act like he's her shining knight in armor and basically take her as his pawn. It does very much highlight and showcase what Ayumu really meant by the last scene of the first season, and it is super interesting and compelling. First arc was pretty cool as we got to flesh out Kei's character more and establish nuance to Ichinose, who seems to be knowing more than she lets on and seems to be hiding something. I'm also interested to see what Ryuen will pull off this season. He is a fun antagonist to watch, and I've always liked him even from season 1. Hopefully, Sports can be even better than this arc, because, you know, this is just a great series and one of my favorites personally. 8.5 out of 10. So before we end this video, let's talk about some of the unfortunate results, as I'll call this. This will be the shows that are basically below a 6 and likely ones that I do not have a lot to say on, and just stuff that probably was dropped, you know, all that kind of stuff, for my opinions, of course. Our first unfortunate result is going to be Tokyo Mew Mew Mew. It's not here because I think it's bad or anything, I just don't think it's it for me. I guess my friends were right about saying that magical girl shows that are erotica might not be my thing, but who the fuck knows. Maybe it's just that this show, like, that has a bit of problems that we will just get into in a sec. Though I think there are weird things that make me confused about this. It mainly comes down to the fact that it's likely a remake from the early 2000s, which I guess did kind of not age that well. So Ichigo Momomiya is a regular high school girl and is in love with the school's popular dreamy guy Aoyama. She really wants to go out with him when he suddenly comes across tickets to an endangered species exhibition and invites him to it. And disaster occurs when a rat monster attacks them there. We find out that she has powers of a magical girl because she was fused with an Iriyama cat and becomes part of Mew Mew, a cafe that these two guys run alongside the other Mew Mew girls that are fused with different animals, who fight to protect the earth from evil. So my biggest issue comes with the relationship between Aoyama and Momomiya. The relationship, it feels like it's going way too fast. Like, this man is fucking falling for her on the second date. And the show acts like we've known him for so long and it's meant to feel rewarding. I will give it that it is kinda neat that Ichigo is being the more proactive one between the two, seeing as both are nervous rather than Aoyama being this cool, calm, and collected character is also okay, cool. Though I find it odd and funny that this scene is trying to make it look sweet, but instead it makes Aoyama come off as possessive and creepy when he talks about how he doesn't want her to leave his sight ever and puts on a cat collar on her because he's found it on the street from the cat that saved him and he calls her his kitty. Yeah. I guess this did not age well at all, huh? This did not age well. Other than that, I don't have any complaints. Show's okay, I guess. 5 out of 10. So we are adding more onto our unfortunate results section, and this time it is Prima Doll. I've seen people actually like this, and personally for me, I'm not that much of a fan of it. But, you know, all more power to you for liking this one. Prima Doll starts Cafe Kuronekotoi, a cafe with autonomous mechanical dolls as employees who served as weapons back in the Great War. And in time of peace, they're searching for a place to belong, and that is the cafe, since the master takes care of the maintenance and whatnot. While the premise sounds like it could tell a compelling story, I just don't feel like connection or investment in anything that goes on in this show. It's not really about me not enjoying the moe aspects either. Hell, I love shows like K-On! For instance. It is hard for me to pinpoint what it is about the show that makes me feel that it is shallow. Though I think it mostly comes down to the emotional stories they want to tell. Feel like they're being thrown way too much without giving us more breathers to like know these characters much. Like, let's take a look at this for episode 1, for example. The story behind Shio and Yugiri could have worked had we known much about these characters, but it sprung onto us right off the bat and it's being presented as something we should care about a lot. But, you know, since it's not really characters that we know much, it kind of just leaves it a bit dull. If I had to name the positive, it is probably the cafe owner. He's actually kind of fun to watch with his playful personality, and it does seem like there's some background to him, so that's what I'd look forward to for myself. It could improve upon these issues as time goes on, but only time can tell. 4 out of 10. Knowing that this was made by the same person who made the strongest stage with the weakest crest, my hopes were almost non-existent. I wasn't entirely wrong for my case. I'm honestly getting sick of explaining these isekai premises, so you should know how it goes at this point. Just know that the standard protagonist used to be a pressured salaryman, has the ability to tame monsters, and has an army of slams and a wolf to help him fend off against enemies. While the first episode has some decent direction with the action, I just couldn't really give a fuck of how nothing was enjoyable. I never really end up enjoying action if there's no weight behind it. If it's just flashy animation, then that's what it be to me. The protagonist himself is also really bland. I honestly thought that these blank slates protagonists were just thrown away all in the early 2010s and just never to be seen again, but I guess not. World is also pretty boring, and the only kind of cool part is the wolf. If you're into overpowered Isekai shenanigans, this could be up your alley, but I personally do not find any entertainment in this at all, so even for a trashy watch, so, you know, I don't know. Dropped and 4.5 out of 10. Whenever I see the word animation, or the animation in an anime, it does worry me. This is set in a magic academy where they train to have good manners and magic, and this just screamed lifeless to me. Not very engaging or charming with its dialogue or characters, and it fails to be entertaining as the cute girls do cute things, as the likes of K-On, as we mentioned earlier, whose tea parties are fun and enjoyable to watch. Dropped in 3 out of 10. So while I did know about RWBY, I've never actually experienced any RWBY content before, so this is a first experience to me. The world is plagued with grims, deadly monsters that attack human civilization. From there we're introduced to hunters and huntresses, warriors who train to fend off against these monsters at Beacon Academy. Ruby Rose tries to be a huntress and ends up enrolling in the academy thanks to her innate talent, and skips grades. The first 3 episodes were odd. First of all, Wise's character is kinda weird. She kind of flip-flops between disliking RWBY to wanting to team up, being prejudiced against Blake for being part of the foundness in the past, to forgiving her in a matter of minutes. I did hear it's intentional because Wise was forcing herself to want to team up and act like she forgave Blake, which I guess is shown in a way in the Dream Seekers episode 4. Another weird part is how they try to present Team Jumper as close friends when Johns was in danger by Nightmare when probably knew each other for like a week. Aside from that, I'm just not invested. I don't know if I'll keep watching at the end. 5 out of 10. It is really sad to see how bad the production is in the show, because I really love the story and will probably get to reading its source. Yuhi Amamiya one day wakes up to a talking lizard who goes on about how he needs to save the world from a crisis and has to train. Initially, he doesn't believe the lizard and keeps kicking him out of his house, but the lizard is linked to him, so he just keeps coming back. Eventually, he becomes part of the Beast Knights, and there he encounters Samidari Asahina, the princess who wants to save the planet from the Biscuit Hammer, only to destroy the planet herself to make it hers, and Yuhi swears loyalty. The plot and character interactions are carrying this mess of an anime. Like, look at how this scene looks. It's a disaster. Yuhi has some pretty compelling things that are going on for him, such as his whole thing surrounding his grandpa and how he's always been drilled to think that he shouldn't befriend anybody and how he'll be stabbed in the back if he does so. There is a lot of trauma and depth to his character, and I do enjoy it as opposed to seeing the things that drive him, such as basically swearing loyalty to Sahina because he did want somebody to give him orders and basically dictate his life because of how his life has been up to this point with the grandpa. No idea if I'll continue the anime forward if I read the manga, but we'll see. 5.5 out of 10. And for our last show is YUREI DECO, a show with a futuristic vibe to it where everyone wears decos. Virtual devices that are implanted in your eye, and it functions sort of like VR. And it is essential in this society to have one. They're used to hold classes and a love point system that dictates your value as a person. It gives off this fake utopian nature where you have this kind of setting with the higher ups wiping out everything that could make people feel sad or a negative emotion or anything harmful. And as an avid fan of Psycho-Pass's first season being one of my favorite all-time anime, this didn't creep me with its setting, but I don't really enjoy this show that much. It's got its qualities, but I'm just not really invested, nor do I care much about it. The whole thing with YUREI and the ghost is kind of interesting, I suppose, but that's about it for me. Don't have much to say about this, so probably a drop, but we'll see. 5 out of 10. So that's about it for the first quarter of the season. I did exclude Kakegurui, Twin, Futo Pi, and Bastard since they haven't been released at the time of making this video. Bastard because I haven't seen the 13 episodes that have been come out as of now, and I've only seen one, so I'll just leave it for the final discussion of the season. Stay tuned for the summer season ending, and we talk about how things have changed for the better or worse, and comparing it to these opinions. And with that, I will be signing off.